Out in the North Atlantic, halfway between Scotland and Iceland, "18 volcanic islands rise from the water like the head of an arrow. Almost no trees. Winter winds reaching 100 miles an hour. No point of land more than 5 kilometers from the sea. Yet 56,365 people have lived here, kept themselves warm, and stayed for more than 1,000 years. In a place where the weather rules everything. How did they do it? And why does somewhere this severe feel calm enough to be a form of meditation? Morning comes slowly to the harbor at Tórshavn. The light does not arrive all at once. It seeps in over the water, over grass roofs still wet from the night. Over coffee cooling on a windowsill, while seabirds call somewhere out past the boats. This is one of the smallest capital cities on Earth. Home to just 22,711 people as of early 2026, according to Statistics Faroe Islands. Here the day is not decided by a clock. It is decided by the sea and the sky. People talk about wanting to throw their clock away. And in a place like this, you begin to understand why. So where is this? 18 volcanic islands, arranged like the head of an arrow, all but one of them inhabited. Sitting at 62 degrees north in the path of the Gulf Stream, Faroe Islands, Faroeyjar in the Old Tongue. Their total area is only 1,399 square kilometers, but the coastline runs 1,100 kilometers long. Because the sea works its way into every fold of the land. And anywhere on these islands, and you are never more than 5 kilometers from salt water. Nearest land of any kind, North Rona, off Scotland, lies 257 kilometers away. That isolation is not a detail. It is the ground condition beneath everything that follows. People seeing this place for the first time tend to say the same thing. Is this real? A name. They had never once heard in their lives, suddenly rising up out of the ocean like something invented. And already, in that first gray light, you can sense a strange arithmetic at work here, a country where the language the coffee, even the daylight itself seem handed out, in careful portions, by the weather. They say the Faroese keep nearly 40 separate words for fog alone, so the sea reaches everywhere on these islands, and not one of them escapes it. And that single fact quietly decides everything that follows. Beginning with the very weather that rules each hour of the day here. In the Faroe Islands, you can live through all 4 seasons in a single day. Rain, then snow, then sudden sun. In the same spot, within the same afternoon. The weather changes without warning and without asking. So people here do not plan their lives around a clock. They plan them around the sky. Nature completely dominates human life, one visitor put it, and once you have watched the light change 4 times before noon, that stops sounding like exaggeration. Winter storms can carry winds above 100 miles an hour, around 160 kilometers an hour, and strong gusts with heavy rain can arrive at any point in the year. And yet, thanks to the Gulf Stream, the climate is oddly gentle. Summers average about 12 degrees Celsius, winters only about 3-, a maritime subarctic. Far milder than this latitude should allow. What you pay for that mildness is moisture. Around 1,400 millimeters of rain reportedly falls each year, spread across most of the days in the calendar. It is not one long storm. It is a sky that never quite holds still. Somewhere out there, the wind is always present, not an event, but a resident. And the Faroese are said to keep nearly 40 different words for fog alone. Think for a moment about what that actually means. You only name a thing that carefully when it rules your life. When you must tell one gray from another at a glance, because your whole day depends on which one has come rolling in off the water. A people does not build 40 words for something it merely tolerates. It builds them for a ruler. The light obeys the same master. In midsummer, the day stretches to nearly 19 hours and 45 minutes of sun. In deep winter, it shrinks to roughly 5. Even light here is rationed by the land and the sky, never by the people. Which raises a stranger question. If the weather is this fierce, this dominant, then why does almost nothing grow tall on these islands at all? Of everything people learn about the Faroes, one detail stops them cold: no trees. It is the thing that makes would-be dreamers hesitate at the edge of moving. One of them said it plainly: would move tomorrow were it not for the lack of trees. So the question sits there, waiting. Why? The main reason comes off the ocean itself. The harsh maritime climate drives enormous quantities of sea salt up into the air. Carried on that endless wind, and salt on that scale is punishing to trees. A seedling that would thrive a few hundred kilometers to the south just burns here, scorched by the air itself. Then add the other forces working against it. Grazing animals, sheep. Mainly, crop the land so hard and so constantly that only a few stubborn pockets of native willow have managed to survive at all. The summers stay too cool for young wood to properly harden before winter, and the wind finishes off whatever the salt begins, so that trees carried in from anywhere else can find no way to take hold in the ground. Here is the turn most people never expect. It was not always this way. Before humans arrived, birch and hazel grew on these slopes. And trunks of Betula pubescens, dated to around 2300 BC, still lie preserved in the soil. The forest was real once. It just cannot return on its own now that the sheep and the salt and the wind have the land. Today, trees survive only in a handful of small plantations, planted as experiments from the 1970s onward. One at Salatrath among them, and to keep even those alive, people had to build shelter for each one. Fences raised around the young trees to break the wind before it reaches them. Sit with that image. Every tree standing behind its own wall, it tells you the whole logic of this place at once. You cannot plant your way out of the weather here. You can only bow to it. No trees also meant no firewood, no timber. So how did anyone survive a single winter, let alone 1,000 of them? Look up from the water, and the land answers back with rock. Sea cliffs here rise more than 600 meters straight from the surf, over 2,000 feet. The Great Bird Cliffs at Vestmanna, reaching close to 700. The highest peak, Slættaratindur, standing 880 meters above it all. There is no gentle shore to soften the meeting of land and ocean. There is only the drop. And the sea is not a backdrop to any of this. It is the thing doing the surrounding. Nowhere on these islands slips out of its reach. It presses in from every side, always within 5 kilometers, always audible under everything. Listen, and the waves fold against a 600-meter wall like the slow breathing of the island itself. Gulls wheeling and turning in the updraft off the rock, the wind combing steadily through the grass at the cliff edge. There is no moment out here when you cannot hear water. It is the constant note beneath the whole place, the sound the islands make. Some visitors watch footage of this and find themselves crying, unsure why, as if the sight reaches past thought and touches something much older in them. People compare it to How to Train Your Dragon, to the world of Vinland Saga, a landscape that looks mythic, except that every meter of it is entirely real. And out at the edges, the land plays tricks. From the height of Trelanipan, the lake of Sørvágsvatn seems to hang above the ocean, an optical illusion of water suspended over water. Not far off, the Múlafossur waterfall pours straight off a cliff into the open Atlantic. But if this is a country of nothing but stone and wind and sea, then what living thing could possibly hold on here? The answer arrives every summer in the hundreds of thousands, and there are more of them than there are people. More than 70,000 sheep wander these mountains, more than the 56,365 people who live below them. The Faroese are, by their own admission, a nation outnumbered by their sheep, and the name says everything. Faroeyjar, from the Old Norse Fareyjar, means the sheep islands. Word for word, the name the Vikings gave this place more than 1,000 years ago, and it has stayed true ever since. Stand on a slope in a hard wind and you will see them. Sheep planted motionless in the gale, less like livestock than like part of the landscape itself. Fellow residents, not possession. There are so many of them that in 2016, the tourist board did something no one else on Earth had thought to try. They mounted cameras on the animals' backs and made their own version of Street View, Sheep View 360. We have more sheep than people, they explained with a straight face, so it was an easy solution. 2 months later, Google arrived with the real cameras. And then there are the birds. As many as 500,000 puffins are reported to nest in burrows dug into the cliffs of Mykenes, the puffin season running from around late April to late August. Roughly 50 species breed here regularly. Each summer, hundreds of thousands of them come back from the open ocean, wheeling into the same ledges year after year. It is the seasonal pulse of the sea itself, arriving and departing on the wind, keeping a calendar older than anyone who watches it. Notice what ties it all together. The sheep graze the slopes so hard, the forest never grows back. The birds come and go with the wind and the water. Every living thing on these islands bends to the weather. The sheep, the puffins, and, as it turns out, the people who arrived here too. Which brings us to the oldest question of all. How did those first people survive on islands with no trees and more sheep than souls? With no forest to draw on, the Norse settlers who arrived around 800 to 900 AD had to warm themselves and raise their houses out of whatever the land and the sea would give them, and nothing more. So they burned peat, cut in dark slabs from the ground itself, and dried in the wind. They gathered driftwood, the timber the ocean carried in from other shores, and laid at their feet, and they roofed their homes with living grass. Everything they needed to survive, they took from the exact thing that was trying to break them. There was no other option, and there was no one coming to help. Look closely at that roof, because it holds the whole idea. A turf roof is layers of living grass and soil laid over birch bark for waterproofing. The grass insulates, warm in winter, cool in summer. It breaks the wind, and its own weight holds the roof down, so the storms cannot tear it away. It is a clever kind of surrender. Rather than fight the wind, they invited the grass and the soil in as allies. The house does not stand against nature, it sits inside it. And this is not a museum piece. Turf roofs are still kept and rebuilt today, green and growing over new homes as much as old ones. Beneath those roofs, a small people held on. Spread across 18 islands, 17 of them inhabited, they kept a language rooted in Old Norse, Faroese, with Danish as a second, administrative tongue, a 1,000-year identity, still spoken. And it is worth being honest about what that identity is. As one Faroese put it bluntly, these people did not choose to live here. They were born and raised here. This survival is an inheritance, not a romantic holiday, passed down, not picked out. They did not stand against the land. They let the house grow out of it. And yet, in the 21st century, they would go on to do something far bolder than any turf roof, something beneath the sea itself. The Eysturoyartunnilin runs 11.24 kilometers under the sea, dropping to 189 meters below the surface at its deepest point, opened on the 19th of December, 2020. It is one of 24 road tunnels across the islands, 20 bored through mountains, 4 driven beneath the ocean floor. Vagatunnilin in 2002, Norðoyartunnilin in 2006, Eysturoyartunnilin in 2020, Sandoyartunnilin in 2023. An archipelago, quietly stitching itself back together. And deep inside that undersea tunnel sits the strangest thing of all, the world's first roundabout built under the ocean. Resting roughly 72.6 meters beneath the floor of the fjord, Guinness recognized it. One driver just said it blew my mind. It has been shaped like a jellyfish, wrapped in an 80-meter light installation by the Faroese artist Trondur Patterson, human figures and stone columns tracing the old Faroese chain dance. Engineering fused with the soul of a people. Picture the drive. down through 189 meters of rock, around a glowing jellyfish of light, suspended under 72.6 meters of seawater, alone in the hum of the tunnel. What it buys, in the plainest terms, is time, and time out here means something. The trip from Tórshavn to Runavík fell from 64 minutes to just 16. Klaksvík dropped from 68 minutes down to 36. Journeys that once meant waiting on a ferry, watching the weather, hoping the crossing ran at all, now take a handful of quiet minutes underground. The sea that spent 1,000 years cutting these islands apart is now, in places, a matter of a short drive. And yet, notice the exact shape of it. They did not conquer the ocean. They tunneled beneath it. 24 tunnels sewing 18 loose scraps of land into one single body. But the body still travels under the water, never over it, and never against it. So even with all this modern power, one question remains. Does everyday life here, even the food on the table, still bow to the wind because their meals are stranger than any tunnel? Consider skirpikjot. It is mutton, fermented not by salt but by wind, hung inside a slatted wooden shed called a hjallar and left for 3 to 5 months while the sea air moves through it and slowly cures the meat. Then it is eaten raw. There is an in-between stage too, called rest or restur, half-dried, already fermented. Sharp and strong on the tongue, usually ready around Christmas. Food here is measured in seasons, not in hours. And you can smell the hjallar before you see it. That deep, pungent air of a shed built specifically to let the ocean wind slip through every gap in the boards for months on end. Look closely at what they actually did here. In a place with little firewood to cook over and a wind that never once rests. They took the wind, the enemy, the thing that stripped their trees and battered their roofs, and they made it the cook. The very force trying to scour the land bare became the thing that fed them through the winter. That is not defeat. That is a kind of genius that only comes from paying close attention to what you cannot beat. That same trust in the elements runs straight into how they treat one another. There is a tradition here called heima blidni, which means, roughly, eating in a local's home, where Faroese families open their own doors and serve a full traditional meal to guests, strangers included. Not a restaurant, someone's kitchen, someone's table, someone's family. It is hospitality practiced as a way of life and a quiet proof of how far the trust here actually reaches. Picture a host pouring coffee for someone they have never once met before, the same coffee we watched cooling on that harbor windowsill at dawn. Trust offered not as a rare exception, but as the plain default setting of the entire place. So they eat meat the wind itself has cooked for 5 months, and they open the table to complete strangers, which makes you wonder just how deep that trust really runs. Here, community is everything. Neighbors know each other's business, but they know it in order to help. not to gossip. It is the exact thing so much of the Western world has quietly lost, and people feel the loss the moment they see what the Faroes still have. Community is everything, one of them wrote, and hundreds agreed. There is a face to this. A woman originally from the Ivory Coast, raised in Paris, now married to a Faroese man and living here for 20 years. Her whole life is the answer to anyone who calls this place dull. She stayed. The trust runs deep enough to show up in the numbers themselves. Social safety here is unusually high, so high that, according to Faroese corrections figures, the entire country needs just one small holding facility, Mjorkadalur, with room for around 14 people and only ever holding short sentences. Anyone sentenced to more than 18 months serves that time over in Denmark instead. More than 1,000 kilometers across the sea, just 22 people in total between 2011 and 2021. For a whole nation, over a whole decade. Sit with that figure for a moment, and there is a gentle detail folded inside it. Mjorkadalur has a turf roof, very likely the only such facility anywhere in the world topped with living, growing grass. Even here, at the one place set aside for holding people, the building grows quietly out of the earth like everything else. For someone raised in a city, this kind of trust reads almost like a parallel universe, more isolated than social media and fake friends. One viewer said, and glad of it, a life that trades the illusion of connection for the real thing. So, this is a place warm enough to leave your door open. Which raises the practical question underneath all of it. Could an outsider actually move here, and could they last? The answer turns out to depend on whether you are even allowed in. Start with a rule that surprises almost everyone. According to the Danish Immigration Service, the Faroe Islands are not part of the EU or the Schengen area, even though Denmark is a full member of the EU. Free movement for EU citizens does not apply to the Faroes. A Danish visa gives you no right to enter them, and a Faroese one gives you no right to enter Denmark. The islands decide their own immigration. Citizens of the Nordic countries, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, can come to live, work, and study freely. Everyone else, EU citizens included, needs a work and residence permit, arranged through the Danish Immigration Service, together with the Faroese government. And this is a place worth arriving in, because it is growing. The population rose by 5,820 people between 2015 and 2024. Jobs now number over 30,000. Unemployment sits near 1%, and the labor participation rate, around 85%, is among the highest in Europe. Foreign workers have climbed from roughly 2% of all jobs to about 7 in a single decade, a sign of people arriving, not just leaving. And average wages rose more than 6% in 2025. If you do settle, you enter the public health system, Heilsutrygd, which reports that every resident is entitled to care, free medical treatment, plus subsidized dental and medicine, in exchange for a contribution of around 175 Danish kroner a month and 0.6% of income. Not free, exactly, shared, in the Nordic way. But the real barrier was never paperwork. It is the weather. Someone used to comfort, they warn, won't last one winter. And there is a quieter grief that comes up again and again. If only I were younger, I would have lived here. So say you got in. Say you got the permit. The question that decides everything is still waiting for you out in the dark. Could you survive the winter? Before the dark, though, there is the light, and things worth crossing an ocean to stand in front of. Sorvagsvatn, the lake that seems to float above the sea when you view it from Trælanipan, the Mulafosser waterfall at Gassadalur, dropping straight into the Atlantic. The turf village of Saxun, Mykines, for the puffins, the Kalur lighthouse out on Kalsoy, at the end of a ridge with the ocean falling away on both sides. To reach any of it, you fly into Vagar Airport or take the Spiral Line ferry, the Norrona, from Denmark or Iceland. Come in summer, from May to August, for the puffins and the long days. But even tourism here bows to the land. Since 2019, the Faroes have run something they call closed for maintenance. They shut around 10 of their most popular sites for 2 or 3 days each year so volunteers can repair them, building signs, shaping viewpoints, laying trails so the ground beneath can recover. The first 100 volunteers had their food, their lodging, and their travel covered. In 2026, the dates run from the 30th of April to the 2nd of May. Think about how unusual that is. A country that deliberately closes its own attractions, turns away the money, so the ground itself can heal. Tourism on nature's terms, never the market's, throw my clock away, quietly turned into national policy. And there is one absence people treasure. There is not a single McDonald's on these islands. The Faroes are among the very few countries in Europe without one, though there is a Burger King in Tórshavn. The missing golden arches feel, to a lot of visitors, like a blessing.